Ready? Ready to go. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals for March 17th, 2022. At this time, I'll ask you to replace all your cellular devices on silent or turn them off. I'm calling this meeting to order. We have a quorum present, so we will begin. I'm your board chair, Bruce Swift. Members in attendance tonight to my left are Bill Ingram and Michael Beard. We are your Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals. We are appointed by the Garrett County Commissioners and serve at their pleasure. The purpose of this board is to provide competent interpretation and full equitable application of the Deep Creek Watershed Zoning Ordinance. Gentlemen, you should have received a copy of last month's minutes in your packet. If you have reviewed them and you have no additions or corrections, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Make the motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, so passed. We'll begin the public hearing portion of our meeting tonight. I'm going to reverse the order of the agenda, if you saw the agenda, and we are going to hear variance 828, VR 828 first. So we have anybody here for testimony for that variance, please step forward. Speak up to the microphone, please. This is a variance case. We're going to hear two different kind of cases tonight. This one is a variance where we judge them, we measure them by a little different standard. These variances are a little harder to get. We're supposed to administer them sparingly. We need to show hardship and practical difficulty. So we hope you're prepared to speak to that tonight and help us with that. I'm going to swear you in. You swear and affirm to tell the truth in this testimony that you're about to give in front of the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals?
I do.
Just please state your name and address for the record.
Robert Lindsay, 327 Crickets Ford Street, Fairmont, West Virginia.
Okay.
26554.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Let's hear what you have to say.
You want me to tell you the case?
You want to read the case in?
Please.
Okay.
Okay. This application is dated February 17th, 2022 by Maureen Kimikata. Mr. Kimikata has applied for a variance to build a new 14 by 20 accessory building on a lakefront lot to within 1 foot of the rear property line. The property is located at 1581 Marsh Hill Road, tax map 50, parcel 515, grid 7, and is zoned LR1.
So I believe everyone has our diagram of we're going to depict the first part is the hardship, the existing issues we have on the site. We'll kind of label a few areas that made us entertain. I guess the original concept was entertain the existing location. Just because it's a residence, been in the family for many years. We did a complete renovation on the existing footprint of the home for the owners to keep the essence of a foundation that's built by her father straight through. So the concept was to build the shed in area 13. You see the 13 kind of marked color in the addition one. The concept there was to stay with the same area and foundations that was utilized, built by family. That shed was a square shed, so we looked at a few options with today's, I guess, the equipment is a little bit longer, so we want to elongate this building a little bit. I think one of the main things when we talk about the overall footprint of it being the 13 or the 20 by 15 was stated. That's obviously the overhangs that are required, the exact footprint. But we have elongated the overhangs for the protecting of the type of cladding material that is matching the home. So it's a wood cladding material. So we've elongated that, and we've allowed the opportunity to hang some of the water equipment and let it dry on a drying rack. So if we would look a little bit on this, I believe it's probably easiest enough to look at is the floor plan. The floor plan here with the wood. So that footprint is a little bit misrepresented as far as what's closed, but I do know that we're looking at the entire footprint. But that drying rack is pretty much a slatted element that represents, kind of harkens the deck that's been designed. So water can filter down through, it can make a very light feeling of the architecture and then stepping through. But staying kind of the architectural points before we look at some of the other spots. But we did rotate it as 90 degrees, which would run perpendicular to the lake to keep the massing of it as thin as possible. And to make it as light as possible, it's lifted off just a couple planes of stone planes to make this thing look and feel as delicate as we can on the surface in the same location. The other points we kind of like to look as back into the site plan that we just spoke of. The areas in front of the home, put the shed, I think it serves itself closer to the water, the nature of the function, but really we have in area 2, there's an existing well, and area 7, there's an existing fuel tank. Area 6 that kind of wraps down through is the lake access. I believe the gentleman to the site there, you can see the tracks down through. Obviously, we're good. So we felt like the front wasn't really something we could entertain without closing off access to the lake. If you move off to the right-hand side, area 8, there's a pond that's been there throughout the family's days. We've kept that. We really worked hard to keep that through the whole construction of the new deck. And then the point 12 that kind of circles down around, there's a pretty, I think everyone on that side in that area has to deal with the runoff. That is a dry bed that we can manage the water from the existing driveway down through. So we have a dry bed that runs down through. And then point 10 is the septic lines, the new lines that went through, and the existing as well. So it really makes it very difficult to do anything on that area also. Kind of going through a couple of points, section 2. Let's see. So the beauty, I think we've addressed some of the beauty issues of the shoreline. It's in harmony with the house, great detail and expense is going to that to keep it flow with that. That's represented on the very last. This is helpful on the very last drawing. It's in your packet. How it really just kind of plays architecturally with it, not overpowering as well. And then the both neighbors have been addressed on that, and they've been throughout both of the renovation, throughout the renovation, they know and have agreed that this is not going to inhibit their view or being, so it's the same spot of the shed itself, the original shed. So I think that's it on ours. If you have any questions or is there anything else to clarify?
Do you know the size of the existing shed that you demolished?
It's a 12 by 12.
12 by 12.
Mhm.
Okay. I agree that and visually it looks good with everything. And you've done a nice job, nice presentation too, by the way. So what is the footprint of this one if it's not 14 by 20?
So it runs, I have that on our little ground. It's gonna run 12, the interior's 12, but it is 15. So it's a 15 lake to road and 12 interior left to right. So it is a 3 foot. And then the reason that came about, I'm not sure if it matters too terribly much, but the elongated paddle boards and to try to get this thing to work and store inside, we needed that room for clearance to hang these on it. So it's just the nature of, I guess, the water sports have gotten a little bit bigger and larger in the years. And they have 2 of those.
Can we see the design of it on our little copy here? It's hard to see the design. Like, can I see your design when it shows the orientation of any doors, anything like that? Like, it's hard to see on our little copy here.
So the lake runs along this way.
Uh-huh,
There's a side door here.
uh-huh.
And we actually have a panel that we can remove so we can get the boards in long ways to stack along this wall.
Okay.
So that was one attention to.
Now walkways down through here.
Mhm, that is, so this might be helpful too. So our walkway from the lake, which had just started, I don't know if you, Jim,
Mhm.
it's gonna tie in, this is existing pad of the old shed.
The excavated area that we saw.
Yes, that was all flagstone, was brought up, it's gonna go back down in the same.
Or
the
it
same-
crosses over the walk path going down.
Yeah, that's it. So the original, we stored all that, all this is gonna be new because it was done railroad ties and flagstone, we're gonna use all the same materials. We're gonna build in the same footprint, elongated, as it lifts off the ground just a little bit for the surface. And then we're gonna continue up to the home. So architecturally, we really try to get these things to flow well. This is just a little panel of glass that is gonna be a light in there, which is kind of a lighthouse, so to speak. So it's really engages the lake.
I can appreciate that we've made an attempt here to lessen the impact from the water looking up to the property. And where I'm still having an issue is with the hardship of the increasement of the footprint of the square footage.
I guess to really justify that is, it's really more so in this length. We would have to take these paddle boards and hang them on the side to the neighbor, or the side of this to the neighbor as well. So we started that process of, what are we going to hang or without this, they just leave it on the shoreline until it's time to store, and they take it up to the garage. So the conscious on it said, well, let's not make it wall art, and it would be on this side to the neighbor.
On the tree line side.
Yeah, and that's, it's not a terrible thing, but you'd have two of these long elements, so to bring it in, so we really just elongate. Now, the extension of the deck is to take whatever vest and everything, just to be able to take it, then let them as a drying shelf. And instead of just leaving everything on bankside, we'll be able to do that.
So is this representing the deck? Like there's gonna be a walk around deck on the lake? Is that what we're saying? Or that's the roof?
It's just a foot. This little extension around is really just the means, it's this little family right here. It's really just the means to try to get this to be light. So it sits on a little platform. So this is just under a foot off each side, and this is a couple feet.
Mhm. So that's not a deck to walk.
No,
around.
you can't. The only thing you can do on that is when you come up the path, is you can walk over, it'll be about height. You can put your things you want to dry, whether it be towels or whether it be really life vests is really what we were tasked for that. So what do we do with the life vest? They need to dry, and so just like that's a response to that.
I think one of my hangups is that we're supposed to administer these variances sparingly. And I believe if it was 120 square feet or under, you wouldn't even be here tonight. So I wonder if, I know you need length, I wonder if there isn't a design that you could come up with that fill in that 120 square foot area that you would need a variance. So I mean, the design's great, your presentation is wonderful. I think that's where my hang up is at the moment. And I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, but that's what I'm kind of stuck on at the moment.
Now, my understanding is that would even include this outside kind of drying shelf as well. So now to start to make this work, we're really looking at like an 8-foot or 6-foot inside clearance. And you definitely would have to shorten lengthwise, was the point where you obviously couldn't get any of the equipment in there for that. The other things to be stored. Obviously, there's a lot to be stored in that. But it's not to say design could not be changed and worked through. It's just when you start to work with a total footprint, even an overhang, then you have to start to bring the overhang in to meet all this requirements. And
I don't think we're worried about the overhang as much as we are the actual footprint of the building. Is there electric or any kind of water plumbing in this thing at all?
There's a water line that runs down to this wall,
Mhm.
and there's power just for light.
Just for lights and stuff.
Yeah, just for light. Yeah, there's an existing line that comes down to that just for the rinsing of.
I saw that.
Yeah, I see your point on the feasibility to be able to shrink this down
Mhm.
a great deal with, I think there's a concession of being somewhat slightly larger, but architecturally making these edges soft makes it seem smaller and lighter to the ground.
I think one of the things that I was looking at in the application, it says the building is 14 by 20, which is 280 square feet. And then you gave us another dimension here of 12 by 15, which is 180 square feet. And so it's coming down, and you were saying, well, that includes this and that includes that. And we really haven't nailed down what is the actual footprint of the building.
The outside footprint.
With the drying deck, that's the measurements you went with in the original statement is outside, the complete out.
So
That's
that's,
what I want to clarify. The interior is really, we're not asking.
but you're
for that.
saying the footprint of the building is what's in the application, which is 14 by 20, 280 square feet.
Yeah, and my understanding is we had to say everything that was on the exterior, so this exterior, so we're 14 and it's been rounded to 20, that's this deck. My understanding was anything that was built was considered the footprint, not what was interior cladding that the shed itself. So we could, I mean, if we're comfortable with just this built object and we pull in, we could pull the drying extra, the drying rack around. And this is this little outside wing of 10, I think it's about 11.5 inches. That's really an architectural element of extending out the floor. It's really just solely about making this shelf, this gentle handoff of the ground when you step through. So it's not about enclosure.
Okay, is there any other questions?
No.
Anything else you'd like to say?
Thank you for your time. Appreciate
Thank you.
the opportunity.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of the application? Anyone opposed? All right.
I'll just say a couple of things. There was two letters, one from the neighbor on either side of that property that sent letters in favor of the change. And we got a letter from DPU that there's no interference on this project.
They're okay with it? Okay. All right. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
We'll close testimony on this case and go into deliberation. Okay. All right, gentlemen, do I hear a motion?
I move that we deny the variance.
Unanimous. Yeah, 828. Mr. Lindsay, we've voted opposed to your application. Appreciate the effort. Very nice job. Architecturally, I agree with everything you say. It just comes down to this, we fail to see a hardship. So we appreciate you coming in. If you can make substantial changes to it, you resubmit it or get below the at 120 square feet, I think you'll be good. Okay, thank you for your time. Okay. Okay, folks, we're going to move on to special exception 498. Before we do, I want to speak to you a little bit about a special exception. Special exception basically is an opportunity for us to look at a use that is proposed. This use is already approved for this district. That has been handled by the commissioners, in this particular case, most recently, and a zoning ordinance amendment. We are sympathetic. I've read the letters. We've all read the letters. We visited the site. We're sympathetic to your concerns, and we really are, but there's not a lot we can help you with in that aspect. I think that your time tonight would be better spent talking about things that maybe we can impose, special conditions maybe that we can impose on the applicant to help ease some of your concerns. I'm not saying that we have decided one way or the other. I'm just speaking to you about where we're at. It appears that we have a lot of opposition to the case. We have 10 letters of opposition. I think we have a petition with like 85 names on it and several submissions for information about solar farms. So we're very aware of all that. Just wanted to say that going in. So we'll start the hearing now. Bruce, you want to read that?
I will. This application is dated February 17th, 2022. Submitted by Palmerino Quixote and Turning Point Energy. They have applied for a special exception for a solar energy generating system, community solar. The property is located along Garrett Highway, tax map 58, parcel 200, grid 21, and is zoned town residential. And who do we have here to present?
Marcus Carney.
Mr. Carnegie, would like to swear you in. Mr. Carnegie, do you swear to affirm to tell the truth in this testimony in front of the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please proceed.
My name is Marcus Carnegie. I'm a landscape architect and a project manager with the Thrasher Group. And I just kind of want to take a few minutes here and just walk through the project itself and just kind of explain where it is, what we're proposing as far as the design of the project itself, the viewshed analysis, setbacks, the conditions that are part of the zoning, and showing how we're meeting those, how the project is set up to meet those conditions. As you're well aware, on the project here in the Pink Square, it's a proposed location of the site. It is located off Route 219 and obviously Deep Creek Lake. Paradise Ridge is located to the southeast, and got a condominium community and another residential community that are adjacent to the site. The project site itself, the subject property, Mr. Cio's property, is about 60 acres. It's the outside line here, it goes up close to the Paradise Ridge. It comes down to Garrett Highway. About 18. What we're proposing with the site is using the existing driveway to the property. We'll widen the driveway a little bit for 20-foot wide access, so that there's 6-foot access to the farm, the solar farm. Straighten out the existing roads, comes up to the solar.
way it's gonna be set up, the way it's proposed to be set up is there's gonna be 100-foot tree buffer that will remain around the east, the north, and the west sides of the property. So, let's see. You guys see?
We have drawings too, so we're following. Yeah.
Okay. So we're maintaining a 100-foot tree buffer. The existing trees are there. The site is wooded, it is forested. We understand that. We do have to have a 100-foot setback as part of the ordinance that was issued and passed last year. So the proposal there is to not clear any trees within that 100-foot to keep that existing trees, keep that existing vegetation. So inside of the 100 feet, will be another 10 feet, and there will be a perimeter fence, which is the outside of the area here, the perimeter fence. So it'll be 110 feet off of these two property lines. And then the solar panels, the solar arrays themselves will be oriented within this area. On the south side, on the side of the base of Paradise Ridge, the tree clearing there, there's going to be roughly 300 feet of trees that will remain on that south side that will not be cleared. And the tree line here is also in the middle of this field that will also remain. None of that will be taken away. And again, part of that is to maintain sight lines, so that neighbors, you see trees, you're not just looking directly down to the solar array itself. There is a stream that runs through the middle of the site. And then it also does have a wetland complex here on the southern side. As you get closer to the existing fields, you get further up on the north side. There's not going to be any construction inside of the wetlands themselves. There's going to be a 25-foot setback off of those that will be respected. 25 feet or more is where the fence is located, the perimeter fence. And then the same thing with the stream itself. There will be no construction within the stream. There will be one culvert crossing in order to connect the two fields, but that's the only impact that is proposed to the stream itself. Is put in that culvert so that they can get from one field to the other. Each side will be fenced individually. Same thing on the access road itself. It is forested in these areas. It will be cleared in order for to get along the access road. There'll be tree clearing there, and then there will be electric line will come down adjacent to the road. And so there will be clearing for that electric right away in the road. No additional trees here will be cleared to the property line. Also want to point out, I guess, on this plan itself, to the west, there's some residential homes that are right up against the property on Watershed. And so what we've done in this area here, since the are mature trees, the smallest trees that we've measured out there are about 60 feet tall. And so the trunks themselves and the branching doesn't start for a ways up. So we understand these homes here kind of, you're looking through, not necessarily getting the screening of the canopy of the vegetation as you are when you're looking down. So what we're proposing in this area here against this is to come in the forest area and to supplement that with some evergreen planting. So those would be evergreen trees like Siberian spruce or Regina arborvitae or some other type of evergreen. We put those in about 6 feet tall, so that way, your sight line as you're looking through there, will supplement those in, not impact the existing trees, but space those out. So that as they grow, so they'll provide some screening as they grow, they'll continue to provide more screening to the adjacent neighbors. So as part of the zoning ordinance, as part of this application, we're required to do a view shed analysis. So we want to go about that in two different ways when it comes to view shed. One, there's the view of the property itself and where you can see it from the adjacent neighborhood. And where can you see it from the ridges? Where can you see it from the lake? Those are the things that you really want to maintain. So from a broad perspective, looking at this, we're able to drop this into the GIS software with the topography. And when we put the site in, and what we did around the site, whenever we did this view shed analysis, we said, okay, we have this site that sits here, the top peak of the solar, whenever it's a maximum tilt, the way the arrays are set, it's somewhere between 15 and 20 feet generally. So that pink box, we said that pink box is 15 feet tall. Around that pink box, we put a barrier of trees that's 60 feet tall. And so we put that in the computer and say, okay, where can you see anything in this pink box? Where can you see that from? And what we did from that is these little areas here that are yellow, these are the areas where you can see that field directly. You have direct sight line from standing in these places directly into that. Now, that ignores the trees that are here, you know, you're gonna be standing in wood lines and that kind of, in these areas. But if these areas were fields, you'd be able to see that. That's the only view shed you see, is these areas. You're not gonna be able to see it from the lake, you're not gonna be able to see it, you know, from other areas. You can always see it from the woods right around it, but it's even saying areas that are further up, you're not gonna be able to see directly into that solar array. The other aspect of that is neighbors, you know, what do you want to see from your homes? So we want to take that into a little bit. A little bit closer, especially from Paradise Ridge, you know, you have the high ground, you're looking down. So what can you see there? We looked at this from these 4 different sight lines, specifically A, B, C, and D. We picked these, looking straight down from these 2 existing homes. Understand they're 2-story homes, and you know, again, so when you're in the 2nd story, when you're up, what are you going to be able to see? So put in topography here and then cutting the line. And what does that look like? What does that topography look like? South of the field. And what we found, so these are along those lines, A, B, C, and D. From each one of these homes, you know, again, assuming that you're on the 2nd story looking down, every one of those is looking through the canopies of the trees in order to see into the farthest side of the field. This is the red lines here, those are the lines of sight looking down. So the lower one is looking for this first row. This one up here will be looking to the far side. And so from every one of these, you're looking through that existing buffers, those existing vegetated areas that were maintained. So that's going to give you, in the summertime, you're going to see leaves, you're going to see green leaves. You're not going to have a view of the field itself. And then in the wintertime, when the leaves are off, you know, you'll have branching. It's not, understand the winter, it's not an exact, you know, screen, but it is a very filtered view of what you'll see during those times. So that is breakdown of how we're going to walk through the process, looking at your regulations, looking at the requirements, and how we went about that out this site to try to. So I believe Franny's here with Turning Point Energy, and I think she has a few things she'd like to add as well.
Just to pick up on,
Franny, let me swear you in as well. You swear and affirm that the testimony that you're going to give in front of the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals will be the truth.
I do.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Francis Uhas, Turning Point Energy, working with the Thrasher Group at 3000 Thayer Circle in Oakland, Maryland.
Thanks.
And I just wanted to pick up on where Marcus left off. First of all, thank you for reviewing our application. We really appreciate being able to participate in this today. And as a project manager, you know, one of the first things that we do is what we really want to embark on that community and neighbor outreach at the beginning of the project before we submit any of our permitting applications. So I embarked on that process in early January. And I started with phone calls. Typically, I would walk around the neighborhood and knock on doors, but during COVID, that has not been the protocol typically preferred. So we look, you know, for publicly available valid phone numbers. I call people and I leave messages. Sometimes they answer, and sometimes I don't reach anyone at all. On this occasion, I was able to reach a few people, and I really appreciated their good questions, and even had the opportunity to follow up with doing screen shares to present a little bit of what Marcus presented, not in great detail, and then answer some questions right there. And if any of you are in the room that I spoke to, please let me know. But it was great to hear what they were concerned about, and how I was able to address those prior to this meeting. Subsequently, I would typically send a letter as well, because you don't reach everyone by phone. So in this case, Mike Tomborello and I, who's been working with me, we did reach out specifically to the Deep Creek Property Owners Association, the Paradise Ridge Homeowners Association, and the Laurel Brook Condominium Association. And I made several attempts, phone calls, emails, and as a result, we did speak to Mr. Chardon and Mr. Bob Sutton as well, and got some initial feedback. We offered to do a screen share similar to that I did with other folks, so that we could hear what their concerns were and address them, prior to getting to this meeting, so that we might be able to, allay some of those concerns ahead of time. They chose not to do that. And it's unfortunate, but we're here today and we're happy to answer any questions that people may have. We did, however, instead of sending a letter based on some feedback that we did receive, we sent a postcard, and in an effort to really get people's attention, to get neighbors' attention that, this is not junk mail, just not a regular solicitation, please call me if you have any questions, because these are the, this is the community solar project benefits, Maryland, it benefits Garrett County, and it can benefit the residents of this immediate area with energy that will be cheaper than the retail standard offer rate from First Energy. So we really do believe that, we want to be respectful of the community. We do believe the project as proposed in our application meets all of the requirements of the new ordinance and of the criteria by which this Board of Zoning Appeals will, grade us upon. And I really do believe sincerely that solar is going to be a very congenial and quiet neighbor, as opposed to some other developments that would be allowed on this property through the special exception process, as a, small commercial or retail operation, or a more high density housing development, which would require impervious surface, potential light pollution, noise, traffic. None of those things will be experienced with a community solar project. It is quiet. It is odorless, no emissions, no pollution. It's just going to be a very quiet neighbor. And the one thing, another thing to consider is that it is not permanent. So community solar project has a life of about 25, 30, 35 years. During that time, the soil will be maintained in its current or even better condition. We will use a pollinator friendly vegetation ground cover that will attract bees and small mammals and birds, and all of that. Marcus can certainly talk about stormwater and stormwater management, because that's also very important. But I guess one more thing that Turning Point Energy is committed to is investment in the community. And as with our other projects, we do take feedback from the community, and as to some of the concerns. I mean, we are aware that there was opposition to the project through this online community and through the petition that was started, and there seemed three things bubbled up to me that was having to do with location, site, and potential impact to the environment and wildlife. And Marcus certainly addressed, I believe, the site and the view shed. I'm certainly happy to answer any other questions you have about that. And with regard to, there's just no studies, no facts that we can find that says solar has a negative impact to the surrounding environment or wildlife. In fact, we have a letter from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife that states there will be no negative impact to wildlife. And in fact, solar in general is very beneficial to the environment. That means that we don't have to use more polluting fossil fuels to generate electricity. So this is one small step in the bigger picture of Maryland's very laudable renewable portfolio standard and renewable energy goals, as well as the bigger overall picture of becoming energy independent. Eventually, we realize this is just one small piece of the bigger puzzle, but we'd like to at least start that. But would like your ideas about community, conservation, wildlife. We're certainly open to potential in other organizations that we can work with, similar to with past projects. We have invested in the Western Maryland Food Council, the Friendsville Fire Department, the House of Hope, particularly during the pandemic when those services were needed most. And we're happy to have that discussion and that collaborative relationship as to where you see that investment to go. Thank you very much for your time and look forward to the discussion.
You say that it's going to benefit the neighbors in the form of reduced energy rates. Tell
They
us,
can.
who benefits from this? The immediate neighbors? What area benefits? from this?
Sure. So anyone who is a Potomac Edison customer can subscribe to a community solar project in Potomac Edison service territory.
So a solar array in West Virginia or some other place that Potomac Edison serves would benefit them just as much as one in their backyard?
No, very good question. Only in Maryland.
Only in
It's
Maryland.
This is under the Maryland's community solar program.
Okay, so but one in a commercial area or a reclaimed strip job out in the middle of nowhere in Maryland would benefit them as much as it would in their backyard.
Only if it was a community solar program.
That's what I'm saying.
They can't,
Right.
it is not my understanding that you can subscribe to one of those utility scale. And that's why community solar is different. It is much smaller than a utility scale.
So it's
solar
no
project.
more benefit for them being that close to it. As long as it was in there in the service area, it would be the same benefit. basically.
If it's in the service territory.
Is there any other benefits to them? Is there any benefits to them by being right next to them like that in the watershed area?
I personally think it's nice, and the fact that, yes, I believe that it, at least for the next 35 years, that property will only be used for a very quiet neighbor. And again, no traffic, no odor, no pollution, no light pollution, minimal, no noise.
So no dense development, townhomes, hundreds of
Exactly.
people. It would be a quiet neighborhood.
Exactly. And at the, and of course, as you know, we have to comply with the decommissioning requirements.
Mhm.
And so the property will be, returned to, the panels were removed, the inverters were removed, everything will be removed. And at that point, what Mr. Chiotti decides to do with the property is, again, up to him and his family,
Mhm.
within obviously the ordinances at the time.
Right. Can you speak to the orientation of the panels on this drawing here? Or is that more of a Mark question?
Well, I can give it a shot and Marcus can tell me if I'm wrong. So they typically are oriented.
Is this a true depiction of the way they will be faced?
Yes, they are. It is a single axis tracker
And they will rotate one way like this.
from east to west throughout the day.
Right. They don't turn. Okay. What, just addressing some of the concerns that I've seen in the letters, we know that you're going to deforest the areas to get the panels in. Or is there going to be any major excavation, reshaping of the contours? The contours will stay the same?
Correct, contours stay the same.
Mhm.
In Garrett County specifically with the solar farms, with stormwater management, there's benefit to not going in and grading. If you don't push dirt, if you don't move dirt,
Mhm.
and you leave it at an existing ground the way it is, then the stormwater, we don't have to dig holes and put in ponds and that kind of stuff
Mhm.
to maintain stormwater. And so the projects we do, whenever we go in here, we try to find sites like this that have a very minor slope, so we don't have to grade. And so they put their solar arrays directly over top of the existing contours on islands.
Mhm.
And that's it. The only grading will be for the access road itself.
Mhm.
Just strip the topsoil off to make a roadbed. And then we managed to run off on that with ditches and level spreaders so that it's the gravel there.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's no other impacts as far as our community goes.
You do have neighbors down slope.
Yeah.
You are deforesting the slope. You are essentially, in my estimation, making it impervious with your panels, or you're concentrating the runoff to the drip lines of the panels. Will MDE make you control the runoff of that site? You say you'll have to do ponds and things like that, but you do have to control the runoff somehow, right?
Well, what it is in Garrett County and within with the solar sites, if the slopes are minimal enough, if the slopes are less than 10%, which they are on the site, there's a disconnection credit, because yes, the panels themselves are impervious, However, they're sitting up on racks, on piles. And so what's actually in the ground are just piles themselves. So everything underneath the ground itself, underneath the panels, it's seeded. And so we don't go in with like a monoculture grass or anything. It is a pollinator mix, so it's clover and other flowers and stuff, that it's a pollinator mix that covers that entire field.
Mhm.
And so, and then these tractors themselves, they're not fixed panels either. So the orientation you see here, it's sort of like a high noon configuration, and the panels are flat, and the sun's coming straight down on them. But in the mornings, you'll see those panels will be tilted, they'll be tilted towards the east, and then they rotate towards the west or the course. Rain happens different times of the day, and so also with that, when it changes the drip line.
Mhm.
So you don't get a concentrated drip line, and then you also have what's underneath it, the water, stormwater hits that existing slope and that vegetation, and that helps disperse it. It's not like a paved parking lot. And because you have that, it's not compacted, the subgrade itself isn't compacted. So it does give a chance for the water to infiltrate, which is where MDE and the local soil conservation district really review it. That's why we don't have to dig the ponds and do massive stormwater management.
No downslope swales or anything like that. There's nothing required. They don't look at any runoff. They
There
don't.
will be some, especially from the access roads themselves.
Mhm.
We have to manage the runoff from the access road.
Mhm.
Since it is gravel, we do compact the base for that. So that is it's like a parking lot. So we run that into a roadside ditch, and then a couple places along the access road, we'll have level spreaders. So we'll turn that out, have a level spreader that'll slow down the velocity, give the water a chance to infiltrate, and also keep it from being as concentrated.
Mhm.
Anybody else have any questions on sign up the reading?
What guarantees can we have that the existing trees will stay? I mean, it's what is to prevent the applicant from getting this thing constructed and then coming in and taking out all the trees in the area? I mean, in the buffer areas, yeah. I mean,
Well, I mean,
I think by definition of the ordinance, they have to remain.
I mean, you require a 100-foot buffer,
mhm.
and so in order for this to go, it would have to be, it's a condition that it stays. And quite honestly, that there, we want that buffer there, as far as, there is a buffer, is a screen for neighbors, and
Mhm.
16 people here, 18 people here who were opposed to the project, and that's part of the reason we want to keep those there, is so they don't have to look at it. And see what they do.
I think what the chairman, not to put words in your mouth, Bruce, but I guess on the southeast corner there where there's two fields with trees between, and then the property line between Paradise Heights, those are trees, and then you have the trees separating the two fields. The concern is that's not part of the 100-foot buffer. So why wouldn't you come in and cut those trees down, and then it would be that would mess up your line of sight drawing, because it's not going through two sets of trees to get to the panels.
Okay, Mr. Chiodi.
Yeah.
I assume that you don't have any intention of cutting any of the trees within the 100-foot buffer.
We would, excuse me, I can't have him testify unless he comes in and
I'm sorry.
I'll call on him.
Okay.
I'll give him an opportunity to speak, so.
I
Okay.
think, I mean, beyond the buffers here, because again, these areas, especially the 300-foot buffer, I mean, those are the areas that we were most concerned with, and you still get an effective screen, even if these trees here are removed. There's still additional trees here that act as an effective screen, especially from the Paradise Ridge looking down. It's my understanding, Mrs. Sierra doesn't have any intention of removing those trees, but he is a private landowner, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in favor of the application? You swear and affirm to tell the truth and testimony that you're about to give in front of the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals?
Yes, I do.
Your name and address for the record, sir.
Mike Tamburello, 54 Wilson Swamp.
Your relationship to the project?
Two things. I'm a citizen of the county, but I also am working for TPE and have helped them with their communications as a consultant. So I won't cover any of the technical. I'm not an engineer. I'm gonna look at these folks, if you don't mind. I live at Deep Creek Lake. My wife and I have lived here about 10 years. And we were concerned about some things you may have been concerned about, whether it was fracking. I might be concerned too, if that was here. Wind, even though it's clean, a lot cleaner than fracking and less dependent on carbon, et cetera. There's the flicker effect and everything. I honestly believe that this is a much cleaner, much better alternative. When I was approached by TPE to see if I could help them with their communication, I said, I doubt you'll have any opposition. I was a little off there, okay? But being a consumer, being a resident here, I wanted to let folks know that I believe they're a very good corporate citizen. I feel personally good about this. That's why I'm looking at you all. And if this were next to me, if I were where you all are now, I would, and if I knew what I know and what they educated me with, I wouldn't really have worry about it at all. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I'm not an engineer, I'm not an expert, but I just wanted to share that for those of you who have those concerns. I understand the citizenship angle and issues as well. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have anybody else who would like to speak in favor of the application? Okay, can I get a show of hands of who intends to testify in opposition? Okay, I'm just gonna swear you all in at one time, if that's okay, in the interest of time. So to each of you, swear and affirm to tell the truth and the testimony you're about to give in front of the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yes.
Thank you. For whoever wants to go first and step up and state their name and address for the record.
I'll go first. I'm not sure. Well, I am not much of a public speaker, but I'm gonna try. My name is Michelle Delala. I live at 18948 Garrett Highway, and this is gonna be my backyard. So I know you, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, are well versed on the advantages and disadvantages of solar array. So I want to tell you how this is going to impact me personally, in the hope that you will choose the residents of our community over a industrial project. This industrial project will literally be my backyard, which is now nothing but woods and fields. You're going to take a residential, agricultural area and you're making it industrial. It's an industrial project. Putting houses in the woods or a big community or even townhouses, anything would be better than an industrial project. Putting houses would have less of a negative impact on my property values than this project. My well's at risk, my health is at risk. I don't care what they say, there's still electromagnetic radiation that me and my animals are going to be exposed to. I have had not the opportunity to be put on county water. I probably never will have that opportunity. And even if I did, I probably couldn't afford it. I'm a nurse. I can't afford to put in a well up my driveway for that water line. I'm sure that everybody knows, I know I was contacted by the Sand Flat Project and I was offered $5 or $10 off my electric bill. $5 or $10 a month off my electric bill is not worth what this project's gonna do to my property values. It's gonna be a huge eyesore. I don't care how they think they're gonna blind it with trees, you're still gonna know it's there. Most residents will never sign up. Anybody who lives in that area is never gonna sign up to be part of that electric, whatever minimal electric benefit there's going to be. Currently, our county is facing challenges recruiting new talent to this area, so much that my employer is offering a $15,000 sign-on bonus, and they can't fill the available nursing positions. This proposal will make it even harder to recruit new people to this area and may cause existing residents, including me, to leave. They're going to want to avoid having an industrial project in their backyard. And with this will further compound our already existing employee shortage at our local hospital. There is absolutely no benefit to local residents. I hear what they say, that there's no environmental benefits to the actual residents of this community. The county has already put the regulations in place to protect the lake, the watershed, and our local community members. The benefit to one landowner and a few tax dollars are not more important than the negative impact to the environment, the lake and the people of this community this project will have. Please protect us. I'm asking you, please, please enforce the existing regulations and do not approve their special exemption. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I don't still, Chuck Chardon, I live at 724 Paradise Ridge. If you go back to some of those diagrams, I'm the house these things are pointed at. They're pointed right at my house. I moved here in 2016 in part because of fracking. I lived in Western Pennsylvania. I saw what fracking did. And I wanted to have no part with it. I saw range resources came in and said, safe. I had nothing to be a problem. I saw them trespass on my friend's property. I saw them build these wells that they said wouldn't have any impact. I saw convoys of trucks from a biker, a bicyclist, come through and almost wipe me out several times. They do have an impact, right? So I came to Garrett County. I can live anywhere in the world. I'm a consultant. I don't have to live in any particular location. I came here because I love the area. I'm invested in the area. Been coming up here since the 80s, right? I just turned 57. 35 years of having these solar panels, that's my lifetime. Right? I'm gonna have to live with those panels 600 feet from my house for the rest of my life, pointed at my house. Most likely I'm gonna sell. I'm gonna move again, right? Thanks. So somebody's gonna come in and try to buy my property. What are they gonna see? Solar panels, 600 feet. You can't tell me this isn't gonna damage the resale value and property value of all the homes on the ridge. So I'm speaking for myself, and I'm gonna cover a lot of my concerns, but I also am the president of the HOA, right? And I've got several members of our HOA here. I have a responsibility to them to help protect their investments. And they're also gonna take it there. I've also got a business. I own a second property in our residence, right? So I'm invested in my community, in my neighborhood. I'm extremely concerned over this. And I'm gonna let Jamie, Mr. Walsh, cover a lot of the technical problems we have. Bruce, I'm glad you mentioned, that buffer zone. So if you go back to these trees, it's a very narrow trees. You guys did a site visit today. You can see right through them. You can see right through them. These trees here between the solar panels, you can see right through, they're not evergreen. The canopy pictures you have in there, there's no canopy. There's just branches. You can see right through them. I showed you today that there's a hunting barn down here, 400 feet from my property. You can see that clear as day. Seeing another couple hundred feet through those trees this time of year, absolutely. You didn't provide any side schematics of what the view would be from my house. You provided a line of sight from the side. I'd love to see what you think these are gonna look like at this time of the year when they're pointed at my house at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You cannot block that 20-foot high solar panels reflecting that sun. Okay, so, and a couple other things that I know Jamie won't cover, but I want to cover. This particular area, as you said, is sloped. Now, my house is almost at the very, very top of the ridge. It's sloped down all the way down to 219. Okay, so I mentioned today, during the summer when the Honey Honey has the outdoor bands, I hear them. That sound comes out of that valley and it rides up that ridge almost like a song, right? I can hear them. This time of year, you come in and you clear cut an access road, and you take out 20, 30 acres of trees, and you put in not noise dampening panels, but reflective panels. That's gonna basically creating a megaphone that is aimed up that hill, right at all the homes at the top of the ridge. The noise, I'm gonna hear every truck going down 219. I might as well move next to the Honey because I'll be able to hear the bands that clearly. And I guarantee you, this is like no other area. Right? There's no trees at the top of my ridge. So that sound just comes waves right up. And the other thing is the wind. The wind up there on the ridge is astronomical. You could be down at the bottom of our association, nice, pretty snowfall. I turn around, I go up to the top of that ridge. By the time I hit the third speed bump, it's a snow squall. That wind's coming up. And again, you're clear cutting 20, 30 acres of trees, which right now provides some buffer to that wind. You're putting reflective panels in there to rotate all day. That's going to change that wind direction. It's going to change. It's going to make it worse. I guarantee you it will make it worse. So those are a couple of things that I have. The tree line, again, I come back to this. I know Mr. C. I don't know him personally, and he can guarantee all he wants. But in 35 years, you can tell me that he's not going to come down and take some trees out and maybe build a house. You can't tell me there's not going to be a fire. Can't tell me there's not going to be bugs. I've been out in Colorado when the bugs came out and destroy hundreds and thousands of acres of trees, literally just decimated them. You can't tell me 35 years and guarantee that those trees are gonna be there. And if something happens to them, who's gonna guarantee me they're gonna go back and restore that buffer? Because once those trees are gone, I've got full line of sight on these solar panels. So there's nothing I can do. I can't come onto your property and plant trees that cost hundreds and thousands of dollars.
Sir, please direct your testimony to the board.
Okay.
Not.
Well, I'm kind
Yeah.
of facing the
I understand.
board,
I
not that person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're not a permanent blocking of these solar panels. They will not, you cannot guarantee they're gonna last for 35 years. And again, I think I think I've got everything. So at this point, I appreciate your time. Again, I think this is gonna cause a hardship to not just myself, but everybody in my association, everybody in the Timberlake Association, which is the other third one, as well as the Laurel Brook, and is Chris from Laurel Brook here? Okay, so Laurel Brook, I'll let them speak for themselves, but also the poor people on Mountainside. If you go back to that drawing where they had the visibility zone, that yellow, that's Mountainside. They're gonna be looking, you can actually, if you went to my house today, and looked over, you can see those homes. So they're gonna be viewing straight down, and that wasn't included in any of your site plans.
It is,
Right.
it's a yellow.
Oh, it's the yellow, but you don't have.
Please, direct,
Okay.
don't.
From here, there is no site plan provided that's gonna see what their view of these panels look like, is what I'm saying. So it's just not in the plan. So, again, appreciate you.
Thanks. Next person would like to speak?
Thank you. I'm pleased the board. My name is James Walsh. I'm an attorney from Cumberland, here representing Chuck Charbon, who just testified, as well as his wife Amanda, who co-owns their property, as well as the Paradise Ridge Homeowners Association Incorporated, which is the homeowners association for the Paradise Point subdivision that is located just to atop of this property. It is the subject property. So what I would like to do, if it pleases the board, if you would indulge me, is to go through the requirements for a special exception, both as established by state law as well as by county ordinance, as well as the specific requirements of the new solar ordinance.
Mr. Walsh, I think we're aware of what the requirements are for special exceptions. Do you think we really?
Okay, well, so let me then just analyze how those would apply to this case.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And so before I do that, if I could ask Mr. Chardon to identify a few things. He's already under oath. He's
Absolutely.
already testified. So first, Mr. Chardon, let me show you some printouts I have of a zoning, a part of the Garrett County zoning map. It shows the properties in question. And did you identify with a black mark on the pen where your property is located?
That's correct. It's the second property.
All right, and then also, there's a PU on the project site. Is that the project property? Okay, so if I could actually just so as the board is aware, there are two principal considerations, questions that you have to answer in determining whether the applicant has met its burden of proof to establish the requirements for special exception, which of course are number one, that this proposed location and use is consistent with the county's master plan, and second, that it is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. And so first, if we could look at the question of whether or not this particular project is consistent with the master plan, I'll point out that the printout I have given you is from the county's website, which is a snapshot of a portion of the county zoning map. And if you look at the map itself, there's a legend there that shows you that number one, the properties that are bright yellow are the Lake Residential 1 zone. This property in question, where the project is proposed, is the Town Residential Zone, and then adjoining it to the west, the lighter yellow is the LR2 zone. The purple shapes that you see on the map, those are from the scenic viewshed overlay protection districts. So those are what's called basically an overlay zone, which is areas of the county map that actually are not limited to one particular zone. And so those areas in the purple are areas that the county, through its master plan as well as the zoning ordinance, has designated as sensitive areas for view shed. And of course, one of the primary purposes of the Deep Creek zoning ordinance is to protect the viability of Deep Creek Lake, which is the county's primary economic enterprise. The lake not only is enjoyable for the people who live there and use the lake, but also for the people who work around it and make their living directly or indirectly providing goods and services to people who enjoy the lake. So the lake is critical. Protecting the lake as a resource is critical. And the county, through its master plan, has designated these areas, these high ridge areas, as very important for view shed. And so if you look at these areas, you can see that one of the view shed areas actually goes onto the property in question, which is supposed to be protected from anything that might interfere with that view shed. Likewise, that same view shed encompasses some of the other properties that are within the homeowners association properties for the Paradise Ridge subdivision. And so this is an area that the county has indicated they don't want anybody to do anything that might interfere with the views. And if you read the county's master plan, it talks about not only the views of those locations, but from those locations. And so it's critical that you not permit anything that would potentially affect in an adverse way the natural beauty that you see from these view sheds. So that makes it inconsistent, certainly with the county's master plan. Second reason why this is inconsistent with the county's master plan is the fact that you are potentially interfering with a watershed. So the applicant has acknowledged that there is a stream that actually cuts through the middle of the project. In fact, what they've indicated, there are really two projects here in some ways. There are two separate arrays that are both going to be separately fenced, and between them is a stream that passes through to create a wetland. That ultimately, as all streams within the watershed, presumably ends up in Deep Creek Lake. So what they're proposing to do is to take an area around the stream bed where they've indicated that there are going to be essentially a total of 20 acres worth of these panels. So they're going to have to clear 20 acres worth of trees on either side, I guess 10 acres on each side of this stream bed in a very small location vis-a-vis the stream bed. You're taking out 20 acres of trees that absorb water and runoff and prevent essentially too much water going into that stream at one time. And they're going to replace it with light vegetation that's so light that it's going to be able to survive underneath of these panels. So it's not just a question of impervious surfaces. You're actually taking out trees that absorb a substantial amount of water currently that maintain the flow of that stream. If you take out those trees that absorb all the water, I don't care how much grass you plant underneath of them or other small plants that can survive under these panels, you're not going to have nearly the same amount of water absorption as you currently have with those trees on either side of that stream. So you're going to substantially increase, or at least you risk substantially increasing the amount of flow into that stream, which is going to then increase the flow of the stream, increase potential sediment erosion that goes from the stream ultimately into Deep Creek Lake. Another issue that you get with respect to that flow is chemicals. Now, they have not identified what chemicals they might or might not use to treat for pesticides. I think they've indicated they wouldn't use pesticides. That would certainly have to be a condition of any permit that you do issue. But they also haven't indicated what they use to clean and maintain these solar panels. And I don't know how we can determine that they're not going to create a problem with this stream that they acknowledge everything flows into the stream from their property on both sides of the stream. What kind of chemicals are going to be going into the stream? And I'll remind you again that in this case, it is the applicant for a special exception who has the burden of establishing that they are consistent with the master plan, that their plan. So if we don't even know what kind of chemicals are going to be going into this, how can we determine that there's not going to be a threat to flow into this water? To the lady who testified earlier, her water well supply, because you're going to be increasing the flow of water into that stream that goes down into that valley. And so I think certainly they have not met their burden of establishing that they're going to be consistent with the county's master plan. The third thing I would point out is the size of the project. I submitted some data to the board this afternoon from a study by the United States Department of Energy that looked at solar projects to determine what the typical size of a solar project is based on the wattage that is produced by the project. And what that study found is that for projects that are under 20 megawatts, what the government typically found was that you had direct occupation of about 5 to 6 acres per megawatt produced, and you had total project size of maybe up to 8 acres per megawatt produced. This project is going to have direct occupation of 20 acres for 2 megawatts, which is 10 per acre, which is very well above what you typically see for these projects. And likewise, it's going to have a total occupation. It appears to me that, based on the drawings that they submitted, it looks to me like it's about half of the property, which is 61 acres, so roughly 30 acres of total project size. Again, that's 15 acres per megawatt, which seems to be high. Now, the reason I point that out is that when the county commissioners did say that solar projects are appropriate for this zone is a general principle, they capped it at 2 megawatts. Now, they didn't cap it at 2 megawatts because they don't want more energy produced. Obviously, if you could produce more megawatts with the same size project, everybody would be in favor of that. That's more power. That's good. But so the only reason that in a land use ordinance, you would limit the scope of the project to 2 megawatts is because you want a smaller project. You don't want the large types of projects, the 50, 75 acre projects. So what they're really looking for, if you look at a typical size 2 megawatt project, is something that's going to be 10 acres or less, not 20 to 30 acres. And so my point is that this is not the type of location that you want to put this kind of a project, particularly when you look at the purposes of the zone in which it's being seated, which is principally to promote a residential area. The town residential zone, when you look at its purposes, it's focused on uses that are consistent with residential areas, which is, again, what the lake serves primarily. That's the business of that part of Garrett County. So while there certainly may be other places within the zone, within the Deep Creek watershed that may be appropriate, this is not one of them. Putting it here is inconsistent with the master plan. The second issue that they have to prove, and again, they have the burden of proof. They have to prove that this will not have an adverse impact on the property, other properties in the area that are more severe than what you would typically have with this kind of a project in a sort of a generic location. So when you look at the properties here, you've got all these properties on top of the ridge that have this good view shed right now, which is part of why these people bought their properties. You've got these properties up here, and I don't know if you can see this or not. If you look up here, this is what they've acknowledged is in the view shed. They're acknowledging that this location up here will be able to see the solar panels. And so that is a unique problem because those are properties along the lake where people buy these properties because of the beautiful views. So that's going to have an impact on them that is unique to this location. There are other places you could put it where you would have to find a place that's not consistent with that. That does not cause that kind of a problem for the view shed. And again, the requirements of not showing there's going to be a unique adverse impact are considered similar to the ones that relate to consistency with the master plan. And so all the issues we talked about would be consistent with that. Now, I want to point out to you also in terms of the unique impact on this project. First of all, I had Mr. Chardon take some photographs of from his property. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Chardon, are these the photographs that you took? There's a lot of, there's really actually a couple of different photos.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. If I could just circulate these, I apologize if
I have
Okay.
circulated those to
Okay,
them.
okay, so you've seen the photographs, and so these are photographs showing you what the current view is of the views of the project site from Mr. Chardon's property, as well as from one of his neighbor's properties within that subdivision. And so what this shows you is that right now, with the two groves of trees that they contend are going to shield this project, you can see through those two groves of trees to see, just a hunting blind, which is designed to be not overly visible, sighted deep into that project. Now, you take out those trees in the back that are forming some of that buffer that you see, and you replace those with 20 acres of reflective panels that are designed to catch rays from the sun. And you can imagine that that's not going to be, the existing grove of trees is not going to shield his property from that. I'll point out to you that in the ordinance that the county just passed that allows community solar projects, the ordinance requires that that the project be screened from adjoining property owners year round. It doesn't say screened in the summer months when the trees are in full bloom. It says year round, and it says that they have to be screened from the adjoining properties. It doesn't say that they have to be screened from the adjoining properties in 6, 7, 8, 10 years when the trees we plant grow to full size. Likewise, it doesn't address, their project doesn't address the issue of what happens if something happens to these trees. And there's no guarantee, they're required to post a decommissioning bond, but they're not required to post a bond that would cover replacing a barrier if something happens to the barrier because of the weather or anything else. A forest fire, somebody's camping down there, whatever, causes a fire. So, or gypsy moths for that matter. I mean, I know when you drive around Garrett County, there are many times when you see trees that are bare even in the summertime because of various types of infestation. So there's no guarantee that the buffer they propose will provide what is required, which is year-round screening. Okay, so that means it's not to be visible from the adjoining properties ever. Now, one other thing I want to point out to you, and this is really a failure of evidence, a failure of proof. This is an argument I'm going to make to you that they, as a matter of law, they have not provided the evidence to you that is required for you to approve the project, and that is this. We got when they submitted the project, they submitted as required this viewshed analysis that they did. But the testimony that they provided was that the viewshed analysis, I think this was Mr. Carnegie's testimony. He testified that they did the viewshed analysis based on an assumption of a tilt angle that resulted in a height of 15 feet. But what their project application says, and I believe what he testified to, was that the range of height would go up to 20 feet. So so to that extent, they have not provided you with really a viewshed analysis, because if their panels are going to be 20 feet in the air and they give you an analysis that assumes 15 feet, then they haven't given you an analysis of what's actually going to exist in real life when those panels are up at the 20-foot level. So we really have a failure of proof here. They haven't proven that they provide a screen. So for that reason, I think that as a matter of law, they haven't done what they're really required to do. Now, what I would suggest, and again, I think that they have failed to meet the requirements for this project. In the event that you would elect to issue a permit, I think you have to place conditions on it that require it to comply with the law, the zoning ordinance, as well as everything else. So number one, you would have to put a condition on that they not put any chemicals into the ground for any purpose, whether it's for pest control, cleaning, whatever. You would have to have them agree, because they haven't produced you any kind of analysis of what chemicals they might use in the project and how that might get into the water and affect the water. So they haven't proven that. So I would argue that they would have to have a condition of the permit that they not produce any chemicals onto the property. Number two, they should be required to provide a complete screen to all adjoining properties that is year round. And that's not what they've proposed. Third, that they should be required to post a bond that guarantees that if anything happens to the screening during the life of the project, that the bonding company would guarantee that that would be remedied. The fourth thing that they're required to do, and I haven't heard any evidence of this, before they're supposed to get a land use permit, and this is in your ordinance, they're required to pay the county to hire an independent engineer to determine what the estimated cost is going to be to decommission this project so that the bond amount can be set. So to the extent that they haven't done that yet, I think that needs to be a condition if you grant it. And again, I don't think you should. But I think you also need to allow for public input into the bonding requirements, because the people who live above this are the ones who are going to suffer if this property is not properly decommitted, property isn't decommissioned correctly once the project is finished, or alternatively, once the buffer is gone or some other calamity happens with respect to this project. So ultimately, you're correct in your initial assessment, Mr. Chairman, that the county has determined that these projects can be appropriate somewhere in the zone. But what they have not proven, and in fact, what I think has been disproven, is that it's appropriate for this location. This is a critical location for the county with respect to the properties, the residential properties at the lake. I mean, this is right along a major part where people go daily to Arrowhead, the movies, and everything else up and down that road. I think this is a critical location. It's very visible from the adjoining homeowners association. It's very visible from this homeowners association that sits atop the ridge on the other side of the highway, as well as some other locations. And again, this view shed is based on 15 feet, not 20 feet. And that's my understanding of Mr. Carnegie's testimony. And so, if we did the view shed at 20 feet, what would it look like? But I think you might see a lot of other areas that would actually have this project visible from it. And that's what they're proposing to build. So for those reasons, I would respectfully request that you deny the permit application.
Would you agree that this use is a special exception and by the ordinance is allowed in all zoning districts?
By special exception.
By special exception, right?
That's correct.
Would you say, or is it your assertion that it's worse in this location than it is in any other area in the zoning district?
Well, I don't know that I would say it's necessarily worse in any other area, and that's not really the issue. The issue is it appropriate here? Is it consistent with the project? Is it consistent with the county's master plan here? And are there any unique aspects to this location that create a more adverse impact? And I think we've shown that. And in fact, and it's their requirement actually to show that there aren't any. So I think really, to some extent, if you're asking for proof of where else you could put that, I think the burden's on them to show that you can't put it anywhere besides here without the same impacts. But certainly there are other areas in the county. You've actually approved one before this ordinance was passed. There's the one on the south facing slope on Sand Flat that was approved a couple of years ago. That's, to my understanding, that's almost complete or is complete. So you've approved that. That's already there. So there are places within the zone where it might be appropriate. But the question, isn't how many other places it's appropriate. The question is, what's the impact here where they're proposing it? With the size of the project, the scope of the project, the location of the project. And so I think that's really what your focus has to be, is on this area right now. So if somebody else wants to find someone somewhere else, they can. And actually, you talked about whether there's any benefit to people because it's located here as opposed to somewhere else in the zone or in the county or even anywhere else in the Potomac, Edison, Maryland electricity service area. I would also ask you, you can certainly take notice of what the law is. And the law is that in these community solar projects the state has approved, they've put a cap on how many there can be, how much total wattage you can have throughout the area. So to the extent that you're putting one here, you might be depriving some other location of one that might be a more appropriate location. And so I think it's important to take that into account. But ultimately, I haven't surveyed the whole county, so certainly there may be other places where it is appropriate, and the county has said that it can be appropriate, but I think because of the factors we've identified here, it's not appropriate here. You've got dangers to the watershed, you've got also effects on the view shed. This is a property that goes right into one of the scenic overlook view sheds. There aren't that many scenic overlay view shed protection areas in the county. They just happen to pick one for the site of their project. So for these reasons, I think this is an inappropriate site. And again, solar may be fine other places, there may be plenty of places for them. There are plenty of places for all kinds of businesses. But that doesn't mean you put any kind of business just because it's suitable for that zone in general. You have to look at the specific location. And I think this is just a really bad location for this. One other thing I would point out to you is that this property, if you look at the county's sensitive areas maps, I've got those as well. The dark areas on this map are sensitive areas. And as you can see, the entry into this property from 219, as you go up into the property, is included in an area that map, if you look at the whole map, designates as a endangered species habitat. So if there's going to be any other, I haven't heard, I don't know what the habitat is, and I think the burden was really on them to tell us what that habitat is, what species is there, and why it's endangered. But I think you would also want to condition anything on them getting some kind of certification from the state and federal agencies that regulate endangered species, just to confirm to you, the county, that they have complied with all endangered species requirements.
As a board, we believe that Schultz v. Pritz compels us to look at special exceptions in that light. That are they worse here than any other area in the zoning? Is that not correct?
Well, it's not exactly what Schultz v. Pritz says. What it actually says is, bear with me for a second. So the Schultz v. Pritz standard basically says that a special exception can only be granted if at the particular location proposed, it will not have an adverse effect above and beyond that ordinarily associated with such use. So it's not so much a question of, is it the worst place in the county? It's you look at the adverse impacts that a use typically has. And you ask yourself, is there something about this location that makes those worse? And so when you look at the issue of water runoff. So if you're out in the middle of an area that's completely undeveloped, that's not close to an important watershed, that's very level ground, and you're going to take trees out, you're going to increase runoff by taking those trees out and putting solar panels in, no question. The typical location of a place, you're going to increase some runoff, you're going to have maybe some additional sediment flow, but that's what you're going to have. What makes it worse here is they're putting these things on both sides of an existing stream that goes to a wetland that is not very far from, and I know you can't see this, I'm sorry, but it ultimately gets to Deep Creek Lake, which is your county's most important economic resource. And the DNR is very, very strict about what they'll let people do and not do in areas near the lake because of the concern of added runoff. And so you're talking about potential added runoff, not just generically, but you're talking about additional added runoff into a stream that goes to the lake, that goes to an existing wetlands area and then ultimately to the lake. That makes it more severe here. You're talking about view sheds. So yes, these things, they might be unsightly at times, they might cause glare, they might be unpleasant to look at. And from a generic standpoint, I may not like it at my house, but where I live, nobody's buying houses in my neighborhood because of the view. So, the county doesn't depend on tourism in my neighborhood. Nobody paid a lot of money. Nobody comes to vacation in my neighborhood. Nobody sits around in my neighborhood and says, wow, what a beautiful view. I'm going to pay 10 times more for this property than I might otherwise pay for it, and pay, a lot of taxes on that. Nobody, this is an area where it's really critical to the county's primary economic engine, which is Deep Creek Lake. And so because of that, this is an impact that's going to have, interfering with the view here is a lot worse than interfering with a view in any other place. I mean, in general speaking. So again, if you put one of these in my neighborhood, people might complain about it. But that doesn't mean it's going to have a negative impact on my neighborhood that would be more severe than your neighborhood or anybody else's neighborhood. This place, yes, this place is, viewshed is critical. And that's why the county has designated viewshed protection areas that you have to protect. So I think for those reasons, we have met the Schultz-Leaf Crit standard. We've shown that there are problems that are going to be associated with this project in this location that are more severe than those that would generally be encountered by a similar project, just in a generic location. So I don't think we have to necessarily go and look at each neighborhood in the county to say, can you put it here, can you put it here, can you put it here? The question is, if you put it here, are there impacts that are more severe than you would typically expect somewhere else?
In the zoning district.
In the zoning district, correct.
Yes.
Any questions? I've got just a quick one, I think. I'm looking at the zoning ordinance section 157.166, which is the special exemption section, and that basically says that we can give a special exemption as long as we make findings of fact that the exemption is consistent with the comprehensive development plan and the property, the exemption suitable for the use and doesn't impact traffic and safety, and also any specific requirements or standards. Now, the new solar generating standards are found at 157.080. And this is a community solar generating system, which is subsection B. And you talked a great deal about the screening, and it has to be screened from adjoining properties, and a detailed plan should be submitted. And the plan shall result in year-round screening and shall be maintained until the site is decommissioned. Is it your position that the screening has to completely obscure the view of the panels, or like we were out there today and without knowing exactly where the panels would be, we were looking through 2 tree lines into the woods that would then have another buffer. So maybe they will, maybe they won't be completely screened. Is that your position? They have to be completely screened?
It doesn't say partially screened.
But what's your interpretation of
My
screening?
interpretation from screening, it means I can't see it.
Okay.
And if you think about it, what would be the purpose of partially screening it? I mean, and if the county commissioners intended a partial screen to be sufficient, I think it's incumbent upon them to further describe that.
Say partial.
Right, or to even establish standards, 80% or whatever. But, again, this is, the code says it has to be screened.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else like to testify against? Please step forward. You're sworn in by the earlier.
He was not.
Sir, you swear and affirm to tell the truth in this testimony you're about to give in front of the Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals. State your name and address.
My name is Paul Ciotti. I'm the owner of the property. And the tree be cut anyway, even though no make a solar panel. Now the solar panel is 10 to 15 feet high. They say 30 feet. If you don't want to see the panel up to the wall where you can see. Now the law say about the chemical. The solar panel no use a chemical. Why you say chemical? He drained this guy. I can't believe one lawyer think about something can never happen.
Okay.
It never happened.
Understood. Let me just stop you right there for a moment. I should have let so.
Yeah.
Could you have a seat? I'll give you another chance here in just a
Okay,
minute.
thank
I shouldn't let you speak
Thank
this yet. Is there anybody else in opposition of the
was sworn in earlier. Scott Lance. I live at 630 Paradise Ridge Road, which is about 3 houses down from Chuck. If I go back to this here. Okay. So I'm located right here. And I have direct access to this. So today I walked out of my back patio on my deck. I have straight shot line into this solar field right here. I go to the second floor bedroom and I even have a better access view into this. So I'm in complete agreement with Chuck is that, you know, we are being negatively impacted, not only view wise, but also gonna be financially if we ever need to go sell because of the view. I've been coming to it. I've lived in the community since 1986 in Paradise Ridge, and nothing is like this have happened. I mean, I've talked to my father who's been here since then, and it's been, you know, a very quiet community. And unfortunately, I know it's solar's quiet, but it's gonna adversely affect our values of our house. And it's not something that I really don't want to have the site view of it. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. You were sworn in earlier.
Yes.
State your name and
My
address.
name is Wayne Stuckey, and I live at 5 North Ridge Court, which is along Paradise Ridge. My wife and I have owned property in the Lake Residential District for more than 30 years, and we've owned our current house where we live. We've owned that house for more than 10 years. We're in the Lake Residential District where the values are higher and the taxes are higher because we love it there. And we like to have the views of the lake. We would not want to be waking up in the morning and looking out back and seeing something that looks like a commercial use on an adjoining property, adjoining the lake area. The fear, I guess, is that the property values would decline as the view became less, fewer people wanted to come, fewer people wanted to buy those houses, which would not be good for any of us, for those of us who own and for the county in general. I think that granting a special exception may lead to other special exceptions in an area around the lake that is very important to the county and to the people who live here. In the whole 950 some square miles of Garrett County, there has to be a place that will better hold and be better used by a solar farm than right adjacent to lake property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in opposition? All right, sir, I'm sorry. If you would like to speak or rebut some of the testimony.
Thank you. You see, the project is 15-20 acre, but they have a farmland there. So maybe 10 acre, it's not 3. So the tree that cut, maybe it's 5, maybe 10 acre. And the rest, we can use the farmhouse, farmland. Farmland don't have no tree. Now, when you talk about the chemical, many times this is Mr. Mina chemical, you know. We don't make it, we don't put it on chemical. You know, the solar panel is the clean energy you can buy. Now, they think when the solar panel is there, have a grass, you know, the company put the chemical, you know. The company sends someone to cut the grass, no chemical. No, the water is clean now, It'd be more clean repertoire. Yeah. No, no, what you call, not in any kind of the chemical they put there, no way. So I believe, no, this guy is wrong when he say they put the chemical, the war, you know, the war go back, the war don't go back.
Okay.
The war is clean now, be clean repertoire.
All right.
Thank
Right.
you.
Let me ask you, sir, before you go.
Yeah.
The trees, your neighbors are concerned about seeing this. You understand, they're concerned about viewing it from their properties and all. You have a buffer around the property of 100 feet that has natural vegetation in it now.
What you mean buffer?
The 100 feet where you can't build,
Yeah, okay.
okay, it has trees in it now, and most likely we're gonna ask you to plant more trees to help screen.
Yeah, if I have a type of, yeah.
You understand that?
Yeah,
Mhm. Okay,
no problem.
all right,
The money come in, the money to back in the land,
it's okay, all right.
and I hope you guys. You go to lawyer, you the lawyer.
Well,
You
Speak to us. Thank
In
you,
Italy, we don't have no welfare, because if we welfare, I'll maybe be the lawyer.
okay, all
And
right,
I don't have no chance to go to school when I was in Italy.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Would you like a chance to rebuttal of anything you've heard in the testimony, or? Did we swear you in already, sir? You swear and affirm to tell the truth into this Deep Creek Lake Zoning Board of Appeals?
Yes, sir, I do.
Your name and address for the record,
Robert Milne, 79 Price Hill Road, Morgantown, West Virginia.
relationship to the project?
I will be the engineer of record sealing the drawings that will be submitted to Garrett County and Maryland DNR for this particular project. I would just like to talk briefly on stormwater. And gentleman spoke in opposition to the watershed and stormwater. And Maryland is historically known as basically ahead of the game when it comes to stormwater management with water quality and quantity. And all of those standards will need to be met in accordance with Maryland Department of the Environment, as well as Garrett County's stormwater ordinance. And those plans will be reviewed by the county, and they will need to be approved by the county prior to this project going to construction. Prior to the project going to construction, an NPDES permit controlling construction stormwater will need to be approved by Maryland Department of the Environment. And those things will be done in accordance with Maryland state standards, which are tougher than most counties around, or most states around.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? You're still sworn in.
Thank you. I would like to address some of the questions come up, and I can't decide if I want to work backwards or frontwards. Again, and apologize from a timing standpoint. I think these are a lot of concerns that we could have addressed prior to getting here tonight, had we had the opportunity, to speak with some of these folks. And I think, Ms. Delala, I think we did speak.
Originally,
We
we
did.
first spoke of the project, you called me once, yes.
Yes, thank you. But let's see, I'll just kind of go through my list. So with regard to, and I appreciate your interpretation, and we agree with your interpretation of, is it really better anywhere else? And I think it comes down to an environmental equity and a social justice issue as well, to be considered. As there are lots of parameters that we look at in finding a site that's viable for solar. And we do look at the communities. And because this property was zoned or is zoned town residential and met the requirements of, there are commercial businesses in the area already. And it is in the master development plan, because I did look at it too. Again, I wanted to make sure that we could check all of the boxes, and we believe we have, and that it does comply with. I even looked at the watershed plan and the Deep Creek water protection plan. There are no chemicals generated from the panels, nor will they be used for, that's the whole point of the pollinator-friendly vegetation, is that to attract the bees and the butterflies and things, you don't want to have chemicals, pesticides, and extra, fertilizers as well. So no harm in runoff, to the lake.
I'm not cleaning the panels. I think that was a point that was made. as well.
So here we get enough natural precipitation that they will not need to be cleaned. And if we have an unusually dry season, then it's just water. It's just water and elbow grease and a sponge. So that is. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So that was no questions. Regarding, so yes, so the ordinance says the panels can be no higher than 20 acres or 20 panels. But so we're at 15, which is why the view shed analysis was done at 15, because based on the current design at the highest point, it's the rotation, we don't anticipate them being higher than 15 feet. Which is, so that's where the 15 feet came from. With regard to the 20 acres, the reason our total area is 20 acres is because we do want to be respectful of the stream. And we are abiding by the guidelines of the 25-foot buffer on either side of the stream. So that's why we can't have the contiguous, acreage together. So although it's not 20 acres of panels, it is 20 acres, more or less within the fence, but it's separated by that stream and the stream buffer. So wanted to clarify that. Let's see. With regard to the sensitive areas, we also noticed that because I did go to the GIS, and I love the Garrett County GIS system, is really super because it does give you all this information that you can do a lot of this due diligence up front. And so we did look at that, and that's why we reached out to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to let us know, because we know there is that small portion in the front that has that green area on it. And we do have a letter, and we're happy to follow up and provide that for you that says they are not concerned about species or special species. The word's just not coming to me. I'm sorry.
Endangered.
Endangered, thank you. It's an easy word, I just couldn't come up with it. So yes, we do believe it is consistent with the master plan and appropriate for the community. I also looked up a definition, tried to find a definition in your ordinance for screening. And what I could find is not a specific screening was not defined per se, but it seemed like that you address screening on a project by project basis or a category by category basis with regard to whether transient homes or mobile parks or the quarry. I was just picking out, random. I was just looking through different things, and you apply different standards. 6 foot high evergreen trees, I think, was for the mobile home park at spaced at a certain distance, so that it is my understanding with this ordinance that when we present our landscape plan, you will look at that to see if you believe it would be adequate or not. So we're certainly open to feedback on that.
Can I interject here? Why don't we have a landscape plan now? I mean, you're asking us to approve a zoning, and all we have is one sheet that shows a little crosshatch with existing trees and proposed new trees, but it doesn't, it's not a detailed plan like this statute requires.
Was that not included in the?
There is a landscape
In the
plan for
packet.
that hatch area. It shows.
Well, what about the whole thing? What about the whole site?
That was the only place we were proposing planting at this time. So-
Because of the trees, maybe we should have articulated that better, because we were retaining the 100-foot buffer of the existing trees that are there, but we could certainly amend that if that would be helpful.
So what the landscape plan we were showing was just supplemental planting in that one area adjacent.
For the house, where it was close to the house, right, you told me about that, right. It identifies evergreens, doesn't say, talk about height or size or anything, it's just one little area like Mike's saying.
With regard to the well water, again, and Mr. I think Jody articulated this as well. No danger to contamination of well water or water running to the lake. The posts for that are the structures for the panels, they're H beams that are driven into the ground. That's the only thing that's going into the ground, and there will not be any other, as we discussed, pesticides.
How
or
deep
herbicides.
typically are the piles driven?
I'm sorry.
How deep typically are the piles driven?
6 to 8 feet. Okay. So no compromising of water resources, no health risks. EMI was, there's no electromagnetic interference done by the solar panels. I mean, it is similar to your refrigerator or your vacuum cleaner in your home. And it's
40
actually
but
much
40
less.
acres of them.
It's much less. It's actually much less than that. It's actually much less, and I'm happy to provide those studies as well. Property values, we don't, again, there are, solar is relatively new. There's not been a lot of studies done, but there's been no indication that property values are impacted by solar. Some people actually think it's cool because, they're moving into a community or the community. I'm just saying what's there. So, and I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's very subjective. And again, I think, change is going to happen. And as long as we continue to live, there's going to be changes, and we just have to, work with it to ensure that we're respectful of the community and the surroundings around us as best we can. So I don't believe we're interfering with the watershed. We talked about, I guess, glare is, we also included a separate glare study in addition to view study. We included a glare study with our package. Yes, panels are designed to absorb light, not reflect it. And I think I covered just about everything. I think what Mr. Chiotti was trying to say is that regardless of the solar project, he was planning to remove the trees. Again, it's a timber harvest. It's a part of the economic, it's as a landowner, it's his right to do so. Garrett County has a lot of timber harvest here in the county, and that is part of your economic base as well. So I just, I was kind of interested about the bands and honey, but I'm going to stay neutral on that. But clearly this is not fracking, and we're not pumping chemicals into the ground to extract natural gas. So I will leave it at that. Thank you again for your time, but happy to answer any questions, any additional questions you think we may not have addressed.
Thank you. That will end the public testimony portion of our proceedings tonight. At this point, we're going to adjourn to closed session for a few minutes. We'll return shortly.
This was brought up a lot of that overlay protection district. And something specific about structures. So that guideline, but it doesn't apply to this. Yeah, I just want to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I want to know that too.
Just close session over here.
Oh, yeah. I do it. That's why I did it.
Honestly, this doesn't stop on. Yeah. I don't Yeah. They only have to notify the immediately adjacent properties. Yeah, you don't touch it. So they don't have to notify anyone on the other side. But nobody here had to be notified. This company's notified.
This is all one parcel.
One parcel. So they were, not inside. You're gonna see this. Again, they only had to notify anybody. Which I think is wrong. You're in that. And also just. You are. The lake is. And the homeowners association. And the owners are. And that's its own ecosystem. And it can only come if you don't care where you fit. And I think they're these for like a company like they didn't want to pay the rates if you don't even know. They have to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't aware of it.
I was at 20 years.
Yeah, there's I don't know the reason why. There were. In fact, it would not be the same. So I lived there, how many but they were able to do housing developers, which is why they were pursuing other ways. So it could be one of those situations because of wetland and restrictions. But someday there would be a development.
And they wrote a furniture shoot. Scott.
So the last few, they really just not just some a million thousands of management to property owners that have land. Which again, if you can't stop it. The only thing that's dead one is if it goes here, which is good cost, it's gonna put it in there. Our community, because of hopefully this versus on the sides, right, or here. I think we're doing it. Solar arrays. So by putting it here, it can't ever.
Yeah.
And I can't.
Okay, Angie, Watershed.
Oh, well, we've all got.
And it's the condo.
Yeah. Really?
Well, it's with that.
I know.
They don't just.
That's the problem.
Yeah, they're not as tall. Right?
Well, that's the the one at that Santa. They also did.
It makes my door a lot
My understanding
Thank you, sir.
Again, this is just.
That's where I live.
Didn't carry.
Okay, I'm recall.
Actually, he and I, we're actually on different. So yeah, he's going to told us, and he could like. He doesn't want to. He wants to buy it. He's like, I've tried.
I did everything.
I want to buy it. Again, we have no benefit. You could do that, we saw him out there.
Most alternative energies are for more. You pay more for wind energy. We found a place that we're not in.
Can I do good? We spoke. Thank you. You did a nice job. We appreciate your help.
Yeah, you did.
So they did give back. Oh, okay.
And
Well, thank you. Yeah.
and he did a great job on that. Can you?
We know you guys supported us.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else we can do to help you? Okay, Chris has to know me. I don't know what I can do. I'll gladly do it. I just don't know what to do.
I won't. do it.
We know.
What's your call? My wife couldn't make it today because even the snow she's skiing last weekend and she probably told me once that.
I don't know.
Did she just surgery? She had her other knee, the ACL. 20 years ago. So this was like her third time skiing since that was strong, no problem.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know how to wait. Just go get it looked at now.
I will wait for the MRI
Okay.
orders and
Yeah.
we've already seen, got that.
Because yeah, if it's not repaired, if it's not gonna heal, why are you waiting? You know, they want you to wait forever.
He's funny because he mentioned her ACL, she heard that 2 years ago, I was right at the start of that. So she couldn't get into the.
Right.
Couldn't get a surgery.
And that's
scheduled.
awful.
She just waited. I called her and said, okay, you're clear, bring me in for the surgery. This is the Steelers knee surgery. Surgeon up in Pittsburgh. And we're like, you just have to drop my hand, we have to drop her off at the door. And then she went in by herself. I had to wait in the parking lot for hours. And then they called.
I can't tell you how awful it's been for people the last 2 years. I started working in ICU. You know what I mean? And where they're all by themselves and they can't have anybody around. And you know, all that stuff, you know, we do all that stuff. The one thing that we have started to do, or we started back then that we do, is we can FaceTime. But, you know, I can't do that. You know. Yeah.
It's not the same as how
Or just being there with them. You can't.
Tell your wife next time, do her MC also.
It might be the MCL.
That would be better, right?
Yeah, but that's what we have to wait for the end. I had MCL. No, I haven't.
I know both of mine 3 years ago out of copper. Same day. Yeah. So now it all has to be. We're a race. No more eating for the rest of the season. I take these young men for a while. Surgery.
That's not.
Where did they go?
Surgeon's assignment.
I should go out down the street and have a beer.
I'm pretty sure they will. Okay. I didn't think we would have an answer tonight. Is that the, what they're gonna do?
Often do, yeah. That's the issue.
Right. I got a letter from the other one that didn't say it right, and I think it was like $5. $5. That's from the other project. Because I'm, yeah. You know what I mean? You want to help them.
You always expected or resident.
Right, that's fine. Do you know the tax?
I heard there was.
Uh-huh, yeah, really?
I've had the ones in the back room.
Yeah, now the winners are. I enjoyed quiet. Yeah.
You right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we originally, I was like my friend that we left the town. And just one day, I was able to come up, serving lunch. And the next day, we moved. We found a road, and yeah. There has to be like power.
Oh, they're loud.
Very super loud. Really loud. All that aggregation is giving us $200 annual credit. On the gas.
Nobody.
So we get $5. Oh, I didn't get that.
What do you do? Is it already? The community doesn't know it's not actually. Where's the? Right. I'm telling you, what I'm seeing that is like 5 minutes.
Last time I checked, I was even worse.
That's awful. That's great. Exciting. Yeah. That's right.
I still ask. And the last one.
So how much?
That's what I want.
I mean, it really is, you know, it's
We have a lot of green.
I'm still. I think we're still blessed. So it was last five years. But some things were hard. I think we
Really? That wind go right up that hill, right over the corner. It's gonna go up, then come down. Right up that hill. Yeah, back there. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's terrible. You see it? So he's gonna hear about us?
Yes.
Okay, folks, we're back in session. After careful consideration, the board feels that the applicant failed to meet all the requirements, specifically section B, item number 4. So at this point, I'm going to ask for a motion. Seconded. All in favor? We're turning down the application for the solar farm.
Ain't bad,
Yeah.
Just wanna write it.
Right back.
Lost the secret paper already. What happened? 157.
080 B4.
I want to say thank you. I'm on it.
We offline now?
Yeah.
We offline now?
No.
I'm gonna start sending things. I'm gonna start sending emails.
They're not gonna self-destruct in 20 seconds?
I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.